Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, well, things changed, but things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card, but only had a debit card.
I want to introduce into the mix Adanna, and she is a Caribbean business coach, strategist, and consultant. She is based in Trinidad and Tobago, and for the last 2 years, she's been focused in the Caribbean region and has supported over 500 entrepreneurs. So with that introduction, Adanna, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of why you've chosen this field?
I grew up in a family of business owners, so it was quite natural for me to take this path. But I also recognize that a lot of business owners, not just in the Caribbean, but around the world, needed support and needed to learn some really good strategies, marketing and sales strategies to grow their business. And that's what I wanted to support businesses in doing. So that's what I do in a nutshell. That's my story. I became a full-time coach in 2016. So about for a little over 4 years, I have helped over 1,000 businesses really develop these strategies to grow their business, specifically in my Facebook group, Dynamic Business Strategists, where we have over 4,000 entrepreneurs helping and supporting each other every day.
So can you give me probably some of the top 2 issues that you're seeing with small businesses? What is the effects of COVID-19 for them in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, a number of different effects, right? What happened in March and what's going on now is completely different. When the pandemic first started in March, what we saw happening a lot was businesses stopped operating, right? And for good reason, because we didn't know where this was going. We didn't know if to turn left, if to turn right. But after a few weeks, I would say a month at the most, those businesses that understood that this is not a time for us to go ghost on our audience and we have to stay, top of mind, they really pivoted, as you said, and they took advantage of, knowing that their audience was home and that kind of thing, and continue to educate their audience, obviously being empathetic and sympathetic about the change in circumstances, because obviously people's buying powers would have shifted. People were sent home, people lost jobs, people, So 2 things happened. A lot of entrepreneurs had to shift their strategies of how they stayed engaged with their audience and how they sold to their audience. And then on the other hand, consumers became more, they shifted their priorities of how they spent, who they spent with, and how often they spent. So it was really about marrying those 2 shifts to make sure that, business continue to run and people will continue being served, right? So those were huge things that we all had to adjust to, right? Because even as business owners, we are consumers as well, right? So it works both ways. So yeah, so those were the major things that I saw happening. A lot of people stopped engaging with their audience, right? They literally went ghost, and they I don't know if they didn't take the time to I don't know, figure out what was going on with the audience, but I know that the pandemic was a scary thing. Seeing these huge businesses close down and or send home staff. It was a scary process. So a lot of businesses had to shift how they were operating.
I want you to share, folks out there, give us layman terms what strategy is for a small business as it relates to being a business coach and the things that you speak about, and why it is important for a business to have one.
When I talk about strategy, I talk about it on two levels. Your strategy has to involve your mindset, right? And your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be. So the first part of it, the mindset, is so important, because I always tell my clients that, or any entrepreneur, that you can have all the strategies in the world, you can have all the tools in the world, the best staff, right? It would not work unless your mindset has also shifted, right? And your mindset is one that is set up for success. And I don't mean just being positive, but about believing that what I want in my business is very possible for me, and believing that it is going to happen. Because a lot of times businesses are struggling to survive and grow and really sustain themselves because the owners of the business have a very lacking mindset, right? They lack that success mindset, they lack that abundance mindset and that kind of thing. And that really keeps them back, because that makes them procrastinate, that makes them get burnt out really quickly, that makes them throw their hands in the air and say, look, I can't do this. So it's, when I say strategy, we talk about mindset first. Once we deal with the mindset part of it, then we talk about the actions, which are the actual steps that you take to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And it's not a one size fits all. Even if two people are in the same business, it is not a one size fits all, because your goals might be different, right? And because your goals might be different, your strategies may be different. Your strategies may be different because your ideal clients may be different, because the platforms that you're using might be different, because your prices might be different, right? So it's not a one size fits all, but the strategies are those action steps that you take, and the action steps that you take every single day to get you closer to your goals. And that's the thing, right? A strategy is not a one-off thing that you do once a month or once a week and then you hope for the best. It's a series of actions that you take together, which include your marketing, your sales, your advertising, your public relations, all of those things that you take together. They have to work together to move you along to, along your sales funnel, along to where you actually want to be. So when we talk about strategies, about the actual action steps, right? And not just the idea of, I want to have this type of business, but what are you doing every single day to get exactly what you want?
So I want you to share for those small business owners, maybe, the ones who are in a mall, what exactly should they be looking at? Where they should start when it comes to customers like me who just, no more hand sanitizers on my hand. I feel like my fingerprints are no more.
Yeah, and your hands so dry. So much sanitizer. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about customer engagement and what that looks like, especially in this new normal that we're living in, right? I tell my clients, now more than ever, you need to be engaged with your audience. You need to be engaged. And that engagement might look like different things, right? Now is the best time for you to be collecting the phone numbers of your audience, collecting their email addresses, right? Because again, you don't have that kind of walk-in traffic, and that's for brick and mortar stores, right? Like the malls. You want to collect that type of information so that you can continue to have conversations with your audience. So for those businesses that have websites, they should be having an opt-in, an email opt-in, or a lead magnet that allows their audience to share their email address in exchange, free, in exchange for some type of valuable information. You want to stay connected with your audience by and this has been like a really huge thing in the last 8 months, right? By doing videos. Videos is still like the number one way to engage with your audience. Doing videos on your social media pages, on your YouTube channels, putting them up on your website. So sending emails is one way to stay really engaged with your audience. The other thing is to do videos and keep your social media active. Keep your social media active, guys, right? By sharing valuable information. And when I say valuable information, I mean information that is going to solve a challenge that your ideal client has. Information that is going to inspire, motivate, and educate your audience, right? Because you're still in that stage of building that know, like, and trust. It's about building relationships. So you want to stay engaged with your audience by sharing valuable information in your videos and in your emails, as well as, like we just spoke about, Pauline, collaborations. That's a great way to stay engaged because everybody is in the same boat. We're all experiencing the exact same thing, right? So now is a great time for you to look around you and see who has the not the same necessarily ideal client, but even if they do, but has a business that may be complementary to yours. And if they do have the same ideal client, but are offering them something different, figuring out how can we work together to ensure that my audience has access to your stuff and your audience gets access to my stuff. So when you think about engagement as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you want to think about how can I continue to serve? How can I continue to share value? How can I continue to inspire, motivate, and educate? And as I said, you can just start off with those three things because we can sit here and talk strategy for days, but low hanging fruits, right? We can do the videos, we can send emails, update your websites because people are going on your websites and they want to know what you have. Update your websites and do collaborations with like-minded business owners who are engaging with your ideal clients as well. And, just share information and continue to inspire, motivate, and educate your audience.
And I want to talk about two things that you mentioned, which was email, right? I am a huge driver proponent. I'm like, you have to. I always talk about this because there are so many email marketing platforms that are for free. And then you spoke about videos, right? And what I've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks out there, please share your insight with us. Slide into the comments, let us know. A lot of people are afraid. They're afraid to ask for someone email, and it's such a contrast because in the States, you go and you buy a t-shirt, they're asking you for your email address.
Email.
They're asking you for your blood type. They're asking
everything under the sun.
Yes, right? And we don't do it here. And
I think
hesitate
to do that, yeah.
Yes, and then you also have people who are like, oh my gosh, video, I'm going to be, someone's going to say that I have something in my teeth. So I wanted to talk about those two things as it relates to the lead generation and content creation, because I feel like it ties back into what you said about mindset earlier, but I wanted to share from a tactical perspective.
Does. Email marketing allows you to really have that intimate conversations with your audience, because I always tell people that while social media is great, we do not have any control over what happens on social media. The algorithms change every Monday morning. There's always a new rule. There's always a new something. You have no control over that, but you definitely have control over your emails. And your email is another touch point for you to engage with your audience, right? And the biggest fear I think people have with email is what to say and what to share. And I mean, I had this conversation with a client just yesterday, and she had so much great content on her social media. And I said to her, well, just repurpose that content, repurpose the information that you're sharing on your social media and share it in your emails, because you are assuming that everybody who is on your social media platform or who is following you or liking you is seeing everything. And a lot of times they are not, right? An email lead generation, like an opt-in, right? The opt-in is that thing that you give your clients for free in most cases in exchange for their email address, right? So, sometimes you see something, you click on it, they ask you for your email address, your name and your email address before they send whatever it is to you, the coupon code, the discount code, the free ebook, the free training or whatever. That is a lead magnet. And that's a way for them to capture your information. And this is what you should be doing, capture the information so that you can continue to tell your audience and stay engaged with your audience, right? And similarly for your videos, right? As you said, Pauline, the biggest thing people have with videos is that fear of what people are going to say, fear that somebody is going to question me, fear that I am not going to sound right, I'm not going to look right, that I'm going to stumble. It always is hard when you first start off, right? It feels so weird talking to yourself. But the thing is that video has been proven over the last 2 to 3 years to be the number one way to engage with your audience and to stay connected to your audience and to sell to your audience. So what's the worst that can happen if you don't use video? And for the content of your video, again, repurpose the thing that you shared on social media. All of your videos don't have to be live. You can pre-record a video and then post it up, so you have that option. And all of your videos don't have to be you talking, because it really depends on the type of business that you have. You can do unboxing videos. You can do videos where you're showing how to make something, like if you're a caterer or anything like that. You can do videos with other people to just take that pressure off of you, you know. So there are different ways to do videos and different types of videos, videos that you can produce where you are still engaging with your audience and sharing that valuable content. But it's one of those things, guys, that if you're not using emails and you're not using videos, you are literally leaving money on the table. And you should be considering that as one of your main strategies, especially in this pandemic time, to stay connected and stay engaged with your audience.
What advice would you give to small business owners as it relates to customer service, right? Because I find a lot of the times when I speak to business owners, so for instance, I went to the optician and his process is very long-winded, takes a lot of paper, and I've been there many times for a couple of years, so why do I have to keep doing the same thing over and over again?
Yeah.
And his response to me was, well, I like a lot of paper. So I ask you this, Adanna. I ask you this. What advice do you have for folks, for a customer that they no longer have because we're changed, right? And what are some of the things that they can do as entrepreneurs to understand how they can evolve to where we're living in right now?
Ooh, that's a nice one. You want to make it easier for your audience to buy from you. You want to make it as easy as possible, especially in this pandemic. People don't want to be out for long hours. People they're teaching their kids from home. They don't have time. So you want to make the process of people buying from you or engaging with your brand as easy as possible. I had this conversation with a client just last week, right? And we were on a call and she was like telling me that she was not getting any sales. So we went through her sales process. And the thing that was actually keeping her back from her sales wasn't that people didn't want her products or her prices were bad, but the process to get the thing was way too long. right? So if you're on social media, if you have a website, if you have people coming in, you have to get people coming in, get all the information up front, right? Again, this goes back to your emails, right? Get all the information you need from them up front, right? You want to make that process literally just 2 steps. You don't want people to have this long-winded way of booking appointments or buying something from you. Now more than ever, customer service is your top priority, because people, they don't have time, and because a lot of people are working from home and they have other things that are taking up their time, they are, they want things to move a little quicker, right? And people are working with you in a more intimate way as well. So you want to make sure that your customer service is on point. And that could mean a number of different things, right? So for some businesses, as you can well imagine, for the pandemic, a lot of businesses have now added that delivery service to their business, right? Which wasn't there before. A delivery service, and those kind of things. You see, we have a lot more courier services. We have a lot more restaurants that are doing takeout and delivery, food deliveries and that kind of thing. You want to make that process as smooth and as easy as possible, because you know why? If it takes too long to work with you or to get the thing that they want, they're going to move on to somebody else, and that's not what you want. So if you're offering something and people say, yes, I want it, you need to figure out, okay, what are 1 to 2 steps? How do I get this to them? They click on the link, they pay, they move on, and they get it, right? Or they click on the link, they make their appointment, and they're coming back, they're coming to you, and they get a follow-up email reminding them about the appointment or whatever. You want to make that process as short as possible.
You mentioned something about customer service, and I wanna to talk about the conflict of it, because I find too people shy away from digital because it gives the consumer the ability to complain very easily. Right? And I wanted to share some insights when it comes to resolution of certain issues that a customer might have, because you're entering into a world that's different to just saying I want a refund and you say no.
Yes.
So can you share some tactical advice there?
So what I tell most of my clients, and again, it's a conversation I had yesterday, you have to have standard operating procedures. You have to have standard operating procedures. And some of those procedures, you have to let your audience know upfront. You have to let your audience know upfront when a discount can happen, when a refund can happen, under what circumstances it can happen. And you yourself as a business owner, you have to be flexible, right? Because sometimes things happen out of your control, out of the client's control. And in this time as well of the pandemic, we have to be empathetic about, people's stress and mental capacities and stuff like that. But for every business, whether you're now starting out or whether you've been in business 10 years, whether you're online business or brick and mortar business, you have to have standard operating procedures, so that when a client buys from you, when you go on these websites, you see what the refund policies are, so you know upfront what those things are. You have to include those refund policies in your contracts as well, right? You want to include those refund policies on your what you call it, your invoices and all those kind of things, to protect yourself as well as to protect your ideal clients, protect the consumers who are buying from you. So you want to set up those standard operating procedures. What happens if this occurs in my business? What happens if a client buys something and it tears? What happens if a client buys something and it breaks in the store before they leave? Just think of all the scenarios that can actually happen, because there are many, right? But you want to create those standard operating procedures and share them up front with your audience, so that there is an expectation from you as well as from the customer, so that there are hardly any surprises at all, right? And make those things very, very, very clear. So those standard operating procedures, I think, is the key to ensuring that you are covered. Yes.
And with this new normal that we're living in, what are some of the expenses that small businesses can expect to incur that they would not have previously?
You know what? It's quite funny because I think that there are not many more expenses that you should incur. When we're talking about the customer engagement, right? We want to think about now you have to come up with different ways for your audience to engage with your business or buy from you, right? Because their spending habits may have shifted. So this is the age of digital products, right? This is the age of digital products. And that's one tool or one strategy you can use to ensure that you remain engaged with your audience. It allows you to provide some kind of value to your audience at a much lower cost, so that they can keep coming back and they can keep engaging with you. But where cost is concerned, I have found in the last 8 months that there have not been any significant increase in what people have had to spend outside of if they've had to use, let's say, Zoom or something and pay for those kind of subscriptions. As even if they're doing deliveries, right? A lot of the times companies who have added deliveries as part of their strategy, the consumer really absorbs most of that delivery cost, right? So it's really how you set out your business. But I can't say that a lot of entrepreneurs have had to expend a lot more money in this time to develop those additional strategies that they're using right now during the pandemic.
You have so many different platforms now, right? As a small business, you're the cook, the bottle washer,
Everything.
the broom sweeper, everything, right? And what advice would you give to a business owner that may have shied away from social media all this time? I know, shocking, there are a few out there.
Why?
I know. We both are in the wrong profession to be like, what? These people exist?
I know social media.
But I have people having conversations about TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have YouTube, you have, email marketing, all these different platforms. What advice would you give to a small business owner that may feel overwhelmed by all these options? Where do they begin?
I would say to you, and this is a really good question, right? Because some people believe that I need to be everywhere in order to get as much sales and as much engagement as possible. And what you're doing by having that thought and actually trying to do that is burning yourself out. You do not need to be everywhere and you do not need to be everything to everybody, because you are actually trying to sell or trying to engage with a specific niche of people. I always tell my clients, you're not trying to sell to everybody. You're trying to sell to a specific niche of people. You're trying to engage. And you have to make that decision of where are they showing up. And especially if you're now starting off, especially if you are the sole person in your business doing everything, creating your products, doing your services, managing your social media and everything, I would tell you focus on 2 platforms. Focus on 2 things and master that before you move on to other things. Because being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, plus having your email, plus having your website will burn you out because it takes time and effort to make sure all of those things are running smoothly. And in the long run, something will suffer. So figure out where your ideal clients are, where your soulmate clients are, and spend time there, right? Spend time showing up there in a very valuable way, inspiring your audience, motivating your audience, and educating your audience. Spend time there. And just as a caveat, it might not be Facebook, guys. It might not be Facebook. We always tend to feel like the first place we need to start is Facebook. But depending on what type of business you have, It may not be Facebook. You have to spend some time doing research on who is your ideal client, what they want, how they use the different platforms, because even though most people may be on Facebook, you have to figure out what are they using Facebook for, right? And that will help you make the decision of if I should be on Facebook or if I should be on Instagram or if I should be on LinkedIn, because each platform was made for a specific type of person and a specific reason. And you have to make sure that your business goals are in alignment with that and your ideal clients are in alignment with that first before you just jump onto every bandwagon, right? You want to niche down, do your research, and then decide. I would say 2 platforms, if so much, but make sure you have an email list and then go from there. And as your business grows and you start to add staff, then you make an assessment of if you need to go on to these other platforms and if you need to add these other things, because you don't necessarily need to add everything onto your plate.
I want for you to share some insight into the customer, right? Because you spoke earlier about, you may be in the same industry, but you have a different customer. And what I find very common is when you ask somebody who's their customer, their response is everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to speak directly to that, because I have this thing where I say, if you talk to everybody, you talk to nobody.
Exactly.
So I want you to share insight a little bit more as to, what do you think about somebody who aren't that's their strategy.
Like yes.
And what advice would you give them?
My advice would always be to do your research. As I said before, you're not trying to sell to everybody, you're trying to sell to a specific niche of people. And the more that you niche down, the easier it is going to be for you to sell it, the easier it is going to be for you to engage, the easier it is going to be for you to build an audience, like raging fan of audience. Because the truth is, you don't need 100,000 people to make $1 million. Yeah, you don't need 100,000 people to make $1 million. You can have 5,000 people following you and make $1 million. It really depends on what you are offering to them. But you want to niche down on your audience. You want to get very, very specific about who you are serving. And a lot of times, business owners, when they start their business, they are their first customers, right? They started a business because they recognized they had a challenge and they figured, you know what, I can solve this challenge. Or it started off as a hobby and then they turned it into a business. So you want to do some research about who actually needs and wants. And I'll give you some examples. So somebody might be selling phones and they might say, I'm selling phones and everybody needs a phone, so I'm trying to sell to everybody. But no, you're not trying to sell to everybody. If you want to sell high-end phones or phones that are for like the tech savvy, or phones for people who are in business and they need good cameras and they need good memory, you need to be really, 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 really specific about who you are selling to, right? Instead of just throwing a wide net. The same thing if somebody has let's say a shoe store, right? You're not trying to sell to everybody, because yes, we all wear shoes, but you're not trying to sell to everybody. You want to sell to maybe people who have size 11 feet or size 13 feet, women, those shoes that are harder to find. You want to really niche down, because that allows you to not just engage with your audience better, but allows you to position yourself as an expert in a particular field and allows you to be the subject matter expert. You know what I mean? So you don't want to just sell to everybody. You don't want to just talk to everybody. You don't want to just spread this wide net, right? Get really, really specific. And I usually walk my clients through a process of some questions that they need to answer, which is like, is your audience married? Are they single? Do they have kids? Where do they live? Where do they work? Which social media platforms are they on? Who is influencing them? You know what I mean? What are their religious views? What are their political views? And a lot of times people say, Adanna, those things are not important, but they are. They are very, very important. The people who they follow influence their buying, what they buy. The people who they listen to on social media influences what they buy. If they are married as opposed to they're single, it influences how they spend their money. Because if you're single, you have no kids, your disposable income may be a little higher because you may have less responsibilities, right? And I put that you may have less responsibilities as opposed to a mom who has 3 kids under the age of 10 all going to school, and she's homeschooling now and that kind of thing. Her priorities may be different. Her income stream may be different. Her disposable income may be different, and what she chooses to spend her money on may be different. Same as if somebody is religious, right? If somebody is religious, and when I say religious, they go to church regularly and that kind of thing, their priorities may be different. What they buy will be different. What they wear may be different. What they listen to may be different. What they eat may be different. So you have to, guys, spend some time doing that research and really fine-tuning and niching down on who you want to serve, because it affects how you engage and how your business grows.
I think that's a great segue into my next question, which before I ask, if you are out there, guys, and join us, you just join us, make sure to smash that follow button for the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago Facebook Live series. This is just one of many. And today we're talking about customer strategies, more specifically engagement with your customer.
Engagement.
And I want to ask about the loyalty of a customer, right? Because Marketing 101 will call you, they'll call them the early adopters.
Yes.
For a more layman term and breaking it down in its simplest form, how can a small business owner identify who that loyal customer is? And how can you encourage that customer?
A few things. So you can identify them. You look back at who has bought from you over and over. This is why, guys, it's so important for you to have a database. This is why it's important for you to collect email addresses. This is important. This is why it's important for you to have these things in place so that you can easily track who is buying from you over and over, who is engaging with you over and over, and those are your loyal customers. What I do, because I have some loyal customers who have been with me since 2015 and who are still with me, and I engage with them at least once or twice a month, right? Because they're in my email list, I send them regular emails letting them know this is what is happening. And because they are loyal customers, I also give them special treatment. So they might be the first to get access to a program, or they may be the first to get like access to a discount code, or I might do a special event just for those people, because those early adopters are the ones who really spread the word about your business, right? Because word of mouth is still so powerful, right? And those are the people who tell the other people about how great you are, how great your product or service helped them or solved their challenge. So you don't want to neglect those loyal customers. And the saying is that it's so much easier to sell to people who have bought from you in the past than to sell to brand new people. A lot of times we focus so much on, I want new clients, I want new clients, I want new clients, but you need to also focus on the people who have been loyal to you and make sure that your engagement strategy includes staying engaged with them and offering them a reason to stay with you. And once you know who they are, once you can identify them through your emails or your websites or your social media, once you can identify them, you really want to make sure that you treasure them and make sure that you treat them special, because they are the ones they're like a backbone of your business. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want to neglect them. Yes, you want new clients, but The ones who have been there and the ones who keep coming back and referring you, you want to spend some time really showing them some love all the time.
What advice would you give to a small business owner or maybe somebody who is looking to open their business? What advice would you give to them as it relates to building a customer database and maintaining their engagement? Because it can become very overwhelming. What advice would you give to that small business owner?
I would say now more than ever, you need to do what I call social listening. In our terms, you need to macro. You need to do some social listening, because the things that you may have been doing post-COVID, the strategies that you may have been using post-COVID may not be applicable now because people's lives have shifted, right? So you need to do some active social listening. And what I mean by that, we all on social media, scroll with a purpose. Scroll with a purpose, right? Follow your ideal clients. Read, trending articles in your industry, in your niche, to really understand what is going on, because you don't want to come across as insensitive. You don't want to be one of those people who don't know how to read the room because they don't know what's going on, right? And once you do that social listening, you can adjust your strategy to really focus on engaging with the right people. And we have a few businesses in Trinidad who did that really, really well when the whole pandemic broke out, right? They and I saw them doing it, and I was so proud of them. They actively listened to their audience. They actively listened to what was going on in the world. They actively listened to, all the information that was coming to them, and they pivoted their strategy so that they stayed engaged with their audience, right? So that they didn't disappear. The messaging that they were sharing on their social media, on their blogs, on their videos, on their emails shifted and spoke directly to the challenges that their audience was having. They didn't, shy away from the conversation at all. They spoke directly to the challenges that they were having, and then they offered their audience a solution based on these new challenges that they were having. And businesses that were able to do that, you would realize that 9 months later, they are the ones who are really, really thriving, right? They didn't stop operations. They didn't lower the prices per se. They didn't discount their stuff per se. They shifted their messaging so that they continue to stay engaged, right, and offered alternative solutions to their audience.